On this week's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, Crystal Palace smashed Man United 4-0 on Monday Night Football. Liverpool get back to winning ways with an entertaining 4-2 win against Tottenham Hotspur. Chelsea put 5 past their London rivals West Ham, and is it the end of David Moyes' tenure at the club? Arsenal and Manchester City continue their winning ways in the title race with a 3-0 and a 5-1 win respectively against Bournemouth and Wolverhampton Wanderers. And in the relegation race, Nottingham Forest get a crucial 3 points, Luton get a valuable point, and have Burnley left it too late after they lost out to Newcastle United. Just me this week, but don't worry, I've got all the breakdown, tactical analysis from all the games from the weekend, and we have to start off with Crystal Palace 4, Manchester United 0. And a lot of people said going into this game that they figured that Man United would struggle, especially with injuries to Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, and the side that they put out with only Johnny Evans and Casemiro playing as the two centre-backs, it wasn't a side that filled you with a lot of confidence. But I don't think anyone, absolutely anyone, not even the most loyal and hardest Crystal Palace fan, would have predicted a 4-0 win. What a result for the Eagles, and that's a team we have to start off with, because credit to Oliver Glasner. I said it myself 6 weeks ago on this podcast that I wasn't sure about Glasner. He hasn't had the best run of results as of late since he's come in, and in the last 5 games, 4 wins, 1 draw. Absolutely phenomenal with the least recent run of games and the result yesterday as well. I think the one player we have to start off with is Michael Elise, a player who's had a lot of injury issues this season. We've been very critical of the fact that Crystal Palace have sometimes, it seemingly have rushed him back into the side when they haven't necessarily needed to. I mean, at one point we were talking about Crystal Palace being in the relegation zone or being very near it, and now look at them in 14th place, and they could actually end up finishing even higher. But Michael Elise, a player who's got a bundle of talent, and if he continues the way he is at the moment, he's definitely going to get snapped up in the summer by a side who's going to be challenging for the biggest honours. And I think his first goal just epitomised everything that he does so well. The way he gets the ball on the half term absolutely does Casemiro, who we're going to come on to when we talk about Manchester United. But the way he then drives at the heart of the Man United defence, what a wonderful run by Jean-Philippe Mateta, who pulls away Johnny Evans to open up the space for Elise, and a lovely finish into the bottom corner. But not only that for his first goal, but his fourth goal as well, picking the ball on the edge of the box and curling it into the near post this time, not the far post. And again, what a lovely finish. I think on the day, Mateta was great as well. His runs off the ball, that's now 12 goals and 1 assist for him so far this season for Crystal Palace. And a player who's only 26 at the moment, he turns 27 next month. I think he's going to have a very crucial part to play in Oliver Glasner's Crystal Palace side going forward. But not only that, you will also talk about the midfield. I think Will Hughes, I think Adam Wharton as well. Wharton, what a fantastic signing he has been for Palace this season. And actually, if it wasn't for the fact that he signed in January, if he actually signed in the summer, I think he'd have a great shot of going to the Euros with England this summer. I just think it's a little bit too early. He hasn't been in any England squads previously, but I think he's definitely going to be in England squads going forward in the future. And I think Crystal Palace, there's so much to be happy about in your team's performance. I mean, the finishing was fantastic. The defending was fantastic. I think overall Crystal Palace can be very happy with the performance they put out on that pitch. Now, we have to talk about Man United as well, and I don't really know where to start. Well, actually, I do. I do know the one place we have to start, and that is with Casemiro, because I feel a little bit sorry for him. 32 years of age, had a couple of injuries this season, hasn't played every single game. But also, I think him playing at centre-back, you expect a little bit more from him, because of the fact that he's such an experienced player. He's won, 5 Champions League with Real Madrid. He is an elite player. He will go down as one of the world's best ever midfielders. I mean, that midfield three at Real Madrid with him, Modric and Kroos will go down as one of the most iconic midfields of all time. But I just think he's struggling a little bit at this moment in time. I mean, in the game against Palace, he was dribbled past 8 times, which is the most by a Premier League player this season so far. And I just think to myself, centre-back probably wasn't the correct position for him to play. I mean, often I think when you take one of your best players out of their best positions, it kind of harms the entire team as a whole. And I think that's exactly what happened by taking him out of midfield, because by doing that, you weaken the midfield, but then you also weaken the defence, because that's not where he wants to be. You can completely see it from the first goal. He is driving out of that defence, trying to tackle a player like Elise in a position where he should be if he's a midfielder, but he's not. He's a centre-back, and he completely opens it up for Crystal Palace to go in and score. And I just thought he had a terrible game. definitely one where if you have more centre-back issues going forward, you don't play Casemiro as centre-back. And if you do, maybe alongside the likes of Rafa Varane or Lisandro Martinez, but definitely not alongside Johnny Evans because they were too slow, too naive at times. I don't know if that's just Man United as a whole or the way Erik Ten Hag wants to play, but I just thought it was a very, very, very poor outside team that Erik Ten Hag put out. Yes, I can understand the fact that he's got injuries, but even then, this is still Man United. You're still playing for the shirt, and I still think that you should be doing a little bit better. I expected better from Wan-Bissaka and Dello to really support the midfield. Sorry, not the midfield, the centre-backs, and I expected the midfield to be able to support the centre-backs a little bit better as well. I thought Kobe Mainoo, I'm not going to be too harsh on him, he's a very young lad, he's only 18 years of age, only first full professional season. He struggled as well in this game, and I think up front, Man United did not have much at all. I think in that first half, Rasmus Højlund only received the ball from one player, and that was from Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the only Man United player to find his striker, and I just thought this was really, really bad. And now it leaves a lot of questions, and a lot of people have been talking about Erik Ten Hag. We've talked about Erik Ten Hag a lot on this podcast, but I think I can probably liken it a little bit to a job, and I think that Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in, they're really going to have to analyse every aspect of the club, and that's what they've been doing. They've been bringing board members at higher levels, try and get the best in class, and they've been looking at Erik Ten Hag, and they've been going through everything with a fine-tooth comb and going, is he the man for us? And I think they probably thought before this game he's probably not the man for us, but I think now they probably know for a fact he's not the man for Man United. And it's like I said, when you go for a job, you know when you hire someone that you're going to fire them probably before you actually fire them. There's the moment you know you're going to fire them, which is probably the Crystal Palace game, but then there's the moment that you do fire them, which is at the end of the season probably, and probably should be after the FA Cup final. And even if he wins, I think he should probably go, because I think regardless of the team he puts out, to not be able to get the best out of these players. And I know a lot of Man United fans will be very 50-50 on whether they should stay or go. I think a lot of other managers would have done better than he has this season. And I think the last 10 games, I think, have been really, really, really poor for Man United. And I think actually, they're only on 54 points. The worst ever season Man United have ever had in Premier League history was, I think 2 seasons ago, was the one where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer started it, Ralf Ragnar took over, and they finished up on 58 points. They're now on 54 points, so the chance that they're going to break their record for the worst ever season, and if you think about the standard that Man United have held, remember when they sacked Jose Mourinho, I think he was 6th, and it was his 3rd season, and they'd just been knocked out of the Champions League. I mean, Erik Ten Hag is having a much worse season than that, so I think it's one where he probably does have to go, and the Man United side as a whole, really, a lot of these players have to go, and I think 7, 8, 9 really have to go this summer. If that's going to happen, we'll have to wait and see, but yeah, very, very, very worrying signs if you're a Man United fan. And I think, you know what, fair play to the fans who clapped their players off at the end, and I really do think that they didn't deserve it. I think it was, those players didn't fight for the shirt. They didn't give the fans everything on the pitch. And the fact that the fans still clapped them off, I think credit to the Man United fans there, because, those players did not deserve it. But credit to Crystal Palace, because 4-0, I think, some really, really impressive performances as of late, especially beating Man United, beating Liverpool, beating West Ham 5-2, to go into next season on a really positive note. And the second game is Liverpool 4, Tottenham Hotspur 2. And when you looked at the fixture calendar right at the beginning of the season, you probably saw this game, 3 games to go for both sides, and you thought, oh, this is going to be a huge game. Hopefully there's going to be a lot on the line. But unfortunately, it hasn't quite worked out like that. Spurs are probably going to end up finishing 5th and not being in competition with anyone else, because Aston Villa are a few points ahead, Newcastle are a few too many points behind, and Liverpool are now, even before this game, were well out of the title race. I've been saying it for a few weeks. But it just goes to show, when there's a lot less pressure on you, Liverpool do seem to perform. And I think, it's a bit harsh to say that, now they're not inside the race, now they're performing. But I think it's true. But I also think they were trying so hard just to get themselves into that position where they were competing with the juggernauts of Manchester City and the season Arsenal, where they just ran themselves, they just emptied the tank and they don't have anything left. But in this game, I thought there were some really fantastic stand-up performances, and a couple of players. I think Salah, Gakpo, Elliott, Robertson, a lot of players that we've been talking about as if they've run out of legs, they're looking a bit tired, looking a bit leggy. I think they've really stepped up to the front this game. And I think, Cody Gakpo was one player, who's come under a lot of criticism. I questioned where he fits into this Liverpool front five, out of the front five strikers, if he fits into the front three. And now it kind of seems like he's kind of preferred to Darwin Núñez. And so in this game, he was linking up really well with Luis Diaz on the left-hand side. Gakpo was going out to the left, Luis Diaz was going central, and they were interchanging a lot, and it really put Spurs defenders into not sure who to mark, and I thought that worked out really well. And you could see from the first goal for Liverpool, I think Cody Gakpo was on the left-hand side. He cuts inside and he passes, crosses to Salah on the back post. And I think to myself, from a Spurs perspective, Emerson Royale, that is really, really, really poor defending. You should be looking over your shoulder constantly. And he goes about 5 seconds without checking where Salah is. And when it's Mo Salah, you need to know where he is, because he could be anywhere. He's a constant danger, and he ends up scoring from a header. And I think, Spurs did all right in that first half, but they were hanging on, I'll be completely honest. They weren't really doing great. And I thought to myself, okay, Liverpool really do need to go on and get a second, because if they don't, then Spurs in that second half will come out. And they do get one just before half-time, and it is Andy Robertson, one of the more unlikely players in the Liverpool side, to get a goal. And I thought to myself, the way that Trent Alexander-Arnold gets the ball on the right-hand side, puts a ball in to Robertson at the back post, was very reminiscent of Liverpool's title winning side. Robertson and Trent very high up, very attacking, getting the balls into the box. But this time it was Robertson who passes it to Salah. Salah has the shot, Vicario saves it, and Robertson ends up getting the ball into the back net from the rebound. And again, this time I have questions of Porro. I think defensively he switches off, Robertson makes the pass, but he doesn't see Robertson carrying on his run. And I thought to myself, it's very poor and a very soft way for Spurs to go 2-0 down. But then in the second half, Liverpool ended up going 3 and 4 up, and I think to myself, the game's over. Spurs really, really poor defending. And I think the third one, especially again, Emerson Royale on playing left back. And I think this is an area where Spurs will have to definitely improve in the summer, is their backup fullbacks, because when Porro and the Doji are playing, they're fantastic. But the likes of Davies, the likes of Emerson Royale, they're not good enough as backups to compete at the highest level and to take Spurs to the next level where they want to be. And in this one, in the third goal, Emerson Royale is daddling on the ball a little bit. He's trying to push Salah off the ball, but he doesn't see Elliott coming up behind him. Elliott takes the ball off him, dispossesses him, runs towards that Spurs back line. He cuts it back, and it's a lovely cushion header by Cody Gakpo into the far corner, and Vicario cannot do anything about it. And then the fourth goal, Harvey Elliott, a player who's not played as much as he probably hoped this season, especially with Liverpool's midfield rebuild. The likes of McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, Endo, they've all played a lot this season. But at times, Elliott has deserved to play, and he hasn't. And he's often been playing out on the right-hand side as well of the front three when Mo Salah has been out injured. But for this fourth goal, what a fantastic strike. And there's a wonderful still, if you can find it, of Luis Diaz, Wataru Endo, and Cody Gakpo, all with their hands on their head in the background as Harvey Elliott is celebrating, because they just cannot believe what a fantastic strike. And it was absolutely, I implore you to go watch it, because what a goal, what a strike that was. But Liverpool do make some changes in about the 62nd minute of the game, where they take off Endo, bring on Bacecic, and they take off Robertson and they bring on Gomez. And from there, they do end up losing a little bit of control, Liverpool, in their side. And Spurs do end up in the ascendancy. They get a goal back through Richarlison, who now cannot seem to not score against Liverpool at Anfield. And then they get another one actually through Heung-min Son. And Liverpool at that point are a little bit clinging on to the game. And I think to myself, why and how that happened. And I think we can't be too harsh on Bacecic, because he's only just come back into the Liverpool side after a long-term injury. He's been out for almost a year now. But he didn't quite have the same control, and he wasn't breaking a play as well as Wataru Endo was. I think for the first goal for Spurs, I think Gomez does fall asleep a little bit, does allow Brennan Johnson to get in behind, and especially with his pace, he can really hurt a side. And I think Spurs did look like they could have got themselves back into the game. I think Gomez made a goal line clearance at one point as well, so Liverpool did get away with it, and they really need to shore up that defence going forward, because they can absolutely score goals, but when they aren't able to score goals, they really need to be able to keep clean sheets, and it looked like they were going to, but they didn't in this game. And for Spurs, that's now 4 consecutive losses in a row to Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool. And yes, it's a very hard run on its own, and obviously the rearranged game against Chelsea being put into this fixture in between Arsenal and Liverpool wasn't ideal either. But I think 4 back-to-back losses now. Is it panic time for Spurs and Ange Postecoglou? No, I don't really think so. I think the feel-good factors back at Spurs in general, the last few results have maybe hampered that a little bit. They're playing a lot more attacking football. They're scoring a lot more goals than they were under Antonio Conte last season. And I think you can be generally positive about Spurs going forward. maybe there's an argument to be made that they've been exposed a little bit in terms of how they play, especially against Newcastle, where teams now, the last after Newcastle, also Chelsea and Liverpool, were all playing very narrow off the ball, trying to suffocate Spurs and trying to not let them play out the back, through the middle, sorry, which has meant that the wide players end up with the ball a lot. But obviously, you can't score from out wide on the touchline. You've got to get the ball into the middle near the box. And so that's where teams have been suffocating them. They haven't been letting the fullbacks get asked forward. And it's been really tough. And I think next season they will have to, go through the transfer market and get some signings to, really bolster up the depth in the squad. But I also think maybe a number 9, someone who's a bit taller, someone who's able to win balls in the air a lot more and be able to hold the ball up, because if teams are going to allow Spurs to have the wide areas, then the only way to get the ball down through the middle is with a number 9 who's going to hold the ball and keep it in his feet and play and have linker play with other players around him. I think that's what Man City have tried to do with Erling Haaland, and I think that's what Liverpool are trying to do with Darwin Núñez as well. And I think Arsenal are definitely doing that with the likes of Kai Havertz as well. The way that they link up with the number 9s, I think that's definitely an area which Spurs are going to have to improve. At the moment, I think they've got a lot of very talented wide players who can play in the middle, like Richarlison and Son, but I think all of them would benefit from having a focal point in the number 9. Who that's going to be, we're going to have to wait and see. That's going to cost a lot of money. But for Spurs, I think they just have to see at the end of the season, get 5th place in the Premier League, which is not a bad season for Spurs, and they go again next summer. And I think for Liverpool, now just about ending it on a positive term and trying to send off Jurgen Klopp in the best way possible. But sticking with the London sides, we have Chelsea 5, West Ham United 0. And I'll be honest, I did not see this one coming. I think West Ham have been very up and down as of late. I mean, yes, they've been conceding a lot of goals. They conceded 6 to Arsenal, they conceded 5 to Crystal Palace, and like another 5 now to Chelsea. It's been very disappointing for West Ham. And I think why a lot of fans are quite upset with West Ham, I think is quite fair, because they've conceded a lot of goals. They've only won 2 of the last 10 games, and they're unlikely to get Europe next season. But they've conceded 70 goals so far this year. And if you take into account the whole Premier League, there's only 3 sides who have conceded more goals than West Ham this season. And that is Sheffield United, Burnley and Luton. Funnily enough, the 3 sides who are in the relegation zone. So I think for a manager who's maybe got a reputation, maybe wrongly so, for being very defensive minded, very hard to break down, 70 goals is way too many for West Ham to be conceding. And if it wasn't for the fact that they have a very good forward line, like Antonio, Bowen, Paqueta, then they could have found themselves in some real trouble, West Ham, if they weren't careful. And in this game, I think David Moyes came out at the end of the game and said, there's individual errors, players not doing the basics. I actually completely agree. I think for all the Chelsea goals, I think they all could have been very, very, very preventable. I think Cole Palmer for the first goal, it's a lovely finish, but the ball just finds himself with the ball at the edge of the box, and he's completely free and unmarked. The second one for Gallagher, the ball bounces up from Madueke. Zuma tries to get there, and then it's just a volley from Gallagher. Third one for Madueke, Silva wins the header. It's very poor marking by Antonio, and I think Madueke 2 yards out is impossible for him to miss. The fourth one is just a simple ball over the top from Trevor Chalobah. Noni Madueke ends up getting to the end of it, and it's just sweaty goal to Nicolas Jackson. And even the 5th goal, I mean, Caicedo just gets past Tom Soucek too easily, and also James Ward-Prowse in midfield. He plays an easy ball into Jackson, and Jackson just coolly finishes. And every single goal for West Ham I thought was completely preventable. But for Chelsea, we have to say that it appears that in the second half of the season, Mauricio Pochettino has turned things around a little bit. I wouldn't say completely, because the first half of the season was very poor. That doesn't completely overrule everything that I saw. But in the second half, they have been much better. And I think getting smashed by Arsenal 5-0 was maybe a good thing for them, And that's, I say that, maybe with a pinch of salt, because, getting smashed against Arsenal, one of your rivals, is never a good thing. But since then, they drew 2-2 with Aston Villa, which was a very good performance, especially in the second half, maybe the last 60 minutes of the game. And they were potentially unlucky to not go on and win it if it wasn't for a VAR decision. They've then gone on and beaten Spurs 2-0. They've gone on and beaten West Ham 5-0. To beat your London rivals, that will definitely get the fans on board and on your side. And now they find themselves in 7th place, 54 points, ahead of Manchester United on goal difference. They're only 2 off Newcastle and 6 off Tottenham Hotspur. And you kind of get in the point now where you think to yourself, oh God, you probably don't want the season to end if you're a Chelsea fan. You may be thinking to yourself, if the season was only 5 to 6 games more, you probably find yourself maybe in that 5th position, maybe in 6th, and challenging for the Champions League all of a sudden. And so I think to myself, there's a lot of positives for Chelsea to take. And, we said it last week. The fact that Enzo Fernandez isn't in the side and Chelsea are now performing really well, I think maybe a little bit is a coincidence, because we do think that Enzo Fernandez is a fantastic player. But, this has allowed Cole Palmer to be more central, Noni Madueke off the right, and they look a lot better side forward, Chelsea. I mean, Thiago Silva coming into the back as well, being that leader in that back line for this young Chelsea side. I think there's a lot of positives for Chelsea to take going forward into next season, and I think this one was definitely one. It's definitely about giving Mauricio Pochettino some time next season, probably some key signings in the summer in the right areas, and then who knows where Chelsea could be going forward. And for West Ham, it does appear, according to reports in the media, that David Moyes will not be staying at West Ham next season. They will not be renewing his contract, and Julian Lopetegui might be coming in and replacing him as the manager of West Ham. West Ham fans, let us know in the comments below. What do you think of that? Because it's not obviously the most sexiest of names, most inspiring, but it is a manager who's had experience at the very top level, Real Madrid, with Spain. He's had Premier League experience, not recently, but last season with Wolves as well. And he's been linked with some top jobs like of AC Milan. So if you do get Lopetegui, is that a good signing for you? Let us know. We're going to be doing a bit more research on him going forward. If it does get confirmed, I'll be putting a video out later to see how he does. But I don't think it's anything to be scoffed at, but I do also think that at the same time, it would have been nice if West Ham don't get in Europe next season, to see what David Moyes can do. Maybe trim that squad a little bit, invest in some key areas, and let's see what can happen. But I do think that, West Ham has some very good players, and losing Declan Rice last summer was a massive blow. They're likely going to lose Lucas Paquetá. Rumours are that Man City want him. They wanted him last summer. It might be one where he's off as well. So there's going to be a lot of change, but I think, West Ham, I think just trust the process. I know it's hard. I know they conceded a lot of goals. I know the football isn't great, but, I think the club as a whole is generally moving into the right direction. I personally would have liked to see David Moyes be given another season, but it is what it is, and if he is going to leave and Lopetegui is going to come in, let us know what you think in the comments below. But one team who absolutely do not need a new manager is Arsenal, as they beat Bournemouth 3-0 at the Emirates. And when I was doing the running order for this, it's tempting to put Arsenal and Manchester City at the very top because they're the two sides in the title race. But actually, I kind of expected Arsenal and Man City to beat Bournemouth and Wolves, and they did, to be fair. And Arsenal, while 3-0 on the score sheet does look very comfortable, it was actually a lot harder than it may seem. Yes, they had a lot of chances, but Bournemouth really restricted them in having clear-cut chances. I think they were really good in that. I think, Arsenal XG was 3.38, of course, over the course of the entire game, and they probably should have scored a bit earlier than they did. But I think, Bournemouth really held their nerve, really defended well. But I think it was only a matter of time before Arsenal broke through, and it was through a penalty through Bukayo Saka in the 45th minute of the game. A bit of controversy about this one. Did Travers foul Havertz, or was it a bit of a dive? And in my opinion, I think when Travers does run out and he does put his leg out there and Havertz does clip it, I think the goalkeeper, you have to look at him and say, okay, he's not in control of his movement. But I do also think it's soft because Havertz does leave his trailing leg there for Travers to trip over. So do I think it's a penalty? Yeah, I think it's a penalty. Do I think it's soft though? I can also think it's soft as well. So I think Bournemouth can be not upset, but I think they'll be a little bit disappointed, because if it's not given on the pitch, VR definitely don't overturn it. But Saka gets a penalty, he scores it, and also go 1-0 up into half-time against Bournemouth. And it takes them a little bit of time before they get the next one. Leandro Trossard, 70th minute. And I think this was lovely play by Declan Rice in the build-up for this one, where he gets the ball and he drives into the box, but then he finds himself with nowhere to go, turns, faces away from goal, and flicks it with the outside of his right foot to Trossard, who coolly finishes first time into the far corner. And that makes it Trossard's 11th goal this season, 11 goals and 1 assist in the Premier League, 16 in all competitions. And a player who's really stepped up for Arsenal, I think, in Martinelli, who's not had a great season so far. I think he's gone a little bit off the boil, he's a little bit leggy, and I think it's just a bad season. He's a young player, these things can happen. I think Trossard has absolutely stepped up. And, Arsenal then go make it 3-0, make it look comfortable on the scoreline with Declan Rice in the 97th minute of the game to make it 3-0. Lovely run from deep. You can literally see him on the screen as he's marauding forward. You think to yourself, yeah, Jesus is going to find him. And he does. He finds him in space, and it's a lovely finish. Maybe Travers should do a little better, but I think, at that point, it's 3-0 Arsenal. They were going to win anyway 2-0, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. But there was some controversy which Iraola talked about in his post-match press conference. First of all, he wasn't happy about the pen, like we discussed. I think it was a penalty, even though it was soft. I don't think he can have too many complaints. If it was the other way, he would be crying for that to be a penalty his way. But there was a disallowed goal. I think this was the 1-0, and it was the challenge by Solanke on Raya. And I think to myself, it's soft, but I think it is a foul on David Raya. I think Dominic Solanke isn't going for the ball. If it's between two outfield players, does it get given? Probably not, but because it's a goalkeeper, does he get a little bit more protection? Yeah, but I think when it's a goalkeeper, you have to give him that a little bit. So I think that one he's wrong about. The one that was interesting which was caught afterwards, was Saliba versus Billing. Does William Saliba pull back Billing? And I think to myself, yeah, probably. But again, it's tough because if Billing gets it and he jumps, I still think there's a really good chance that Ray gets it first anyway. But I do think that Saliba was probably a bit lucky that the fact that the referee didn't see it, and the VAR, again, I think it's too soft for VAR to overturn it, which I'm not sure I like because it's clear and obvious, but it's also there's also a high bar, and I don't know. But I do think to myself, yeah, again, I think that one, the Saliba one, the pullback, that was a bit lucky for Arsenal to not be conceding. But I don't think it would have mattered, if I'm being completely honest. I think Bournemouth have been fantastic this season, but I think in this game Arsenal were just so much better. They only had 2 shots on target in the entire game, Bournemouth, compared to Arsenal's 25 shots. And this goes to show the chance creation that Arsenal have, the way that they're willing to create the chances, to be patient, because 21 of the 25 shots were inside the box. They don't just have pot shots from outside, they don't just chance of luck. They create great chances. 21 shots inside the box is phenomenal. And I think Bournemouth were eventually going to cave and Arsenal, go ahead and got the 3 points. And at the moment, they're on 83 points. They got Man United away to play and Everton at home in the final 2 games. 88 goals scored this season, 20 conceded, a goal difference of 60. They've been absolutely phenomenal. And if they win the last 2 games, they'll end up on 89 points. Will that be enough? We'll have to wait and see with this Manchester City side. But I think regardless of if Arsenal win the Premier League or not this season, I think they can be very, very proud of what they've achieved, because in my opinion, they've played the best football. I think they've also been the best team this season. And if they lose out to Man City, I think they can still hold up the head very high, because they've played like champions, even if they don't end up being champions at the end of the year. And speaking of Manchester City, it was their game up next as they beat Wolverhampton Wanderers 5-1 at the Etihad. And, I think we all got our hopes of thinking Wolves beat Man City earlier on in the season. Maybe they can do it again. But I think this time Man City put it beyond no doubt that they were not going to let Wolves beat them for a second consecutive time. And it was the Erling Haaland show. The robot who does not score, is having a very poor season, is the League 2 striker. Ends up with 4 goals out of the 5 in this game. I mean, the first one was a penalty, and Aït-Nouri's foul on Gvardiol, it's tough, because I think Aït-Nouri doesn't realise that Gvardiol is behind him, and Gvardiol does have the shot. But I do think that Aït-Nouri clips him in the follow-through. I think a lot of people are saying it wasn't a penalty. For me, I think it was. I think as a defender, Aït-Nouri doesn't know where his man is. He unexpectedly pops up in that position, Gvardiol, and he takes him out after the fact, yes, but I think it is a penalty. And Haaland, as he does convert it to make it his 22nd goal of the season. And then he gets his 23rd with a lovely chip from Rodri on the edge of the box on the right-hand side to Haaland. And he jumps, he beats Semedo easily in the air and pops it in to make it 2-0, 23rd goal of the season. And then he has another penalty. And I think the fact that the referee on field didn't give it was a bit of a shambles, but in this instance, it's a reason why we need VAR, just because of the fact that Haaland is running through and goal, played through just by Kovacic, who just kind of plays into space, and Haaland, with his pace and power, just runs in behind. I think Semedo does take him out, gets the yellow card, maybe a bit fortunate not to get a red card, just because he gets no part of the ball, and you could maybe question if he's even going for the ball, but Haaland then converts the penalty, makes it 3-0, gets a hat-trick, 24th goal, and then he gets his 25th goal of the season so far in the second half, when he gets a lovely clip ball by Phil Foden over the top, and he gets the ball a bit luckily, it ricochets off him, but the way he cut inside past Kilman and loops it into the top corner past the goalkeeper is nothing about that is lucky, because he absolutely deserved it, getting his 25th goal of the season. And in the middle of that, as he's coming off Erling Haaland, he does have a bit of a spat. Not sure if what he's complaining about. He said he's complaining about the fact that he wasn't getting any of the decisions his way and he was being a bit, roughed up by Kilman. I think he probably wasn't happy about the fact that he came off. I think he clearly saw an opportunity to get even more goals, and as he's been getting a lot of criticism this season, especially as of late, because he hasn't been scoring, I think he wants to put into everyone's mind that, what, regardless of if I have penalties or not, I'm still one of the best strikers in this league. I am the best striker in the league, and I'm going to continue to score goals. And to be fair, he didn't need to stay on the pitch, because even the fact that Man City got another one through Julian Alvarez, who Haaland probably would have been in this position. But I think he proved today that, there was not even a single bit of grain of doubt, I think, in anyone's mind. I think it was more just a bit of friendly banter. But I think the fact that he scored 4 today, that all quietens it down for at least a few more weeks, because he is phenomenal. We know he's phenomenal. And he obviously got the 4 goals that he did deserve, because he played phenomenally in this game. But that takes him to 25 goals. He's got 4 more than Cole Palmer in second, 5 more than Isak in third. And this is a player who, hasn't been having his best season. He's an absolute machine. This Man City side are absolutely phenomenal. And for Wolves, it was a bit disappointing. They've only won 2 of the last 10 games. So they've had a bit of a dip in form. And they've been knocked out in the FA Cup against Coventry, who obviously made it to the semi-finals against Manchester United. And they were probably hoping for a better end to the season than they've had. They probably dipped a little bit, not in performances because they're carrying on trying, but definitely in terms of results. And I think in this game, they're just, they came against a Man City side who are phenomenal and they can put 5 past anyone on their day. But, one of the positives was Hwang got his goal. A bit fortunate about the way he got it. Bellegarde crossed it from the right-hand side. Edison just completely flaps at the ball. I don't really know what he's doing. He should either be catching that or punching that out completely. And he didn't even have a lot of pressure on him. So it's one where I'm not going to give too much criticism to Edison, because he's a world-class goalkeeper. He's had a couple of injury issues as of late, so he's probably, you can let him pass on that one. But I think, the way that Hwang scored on the half volley, didn't lean back at all, got it into the goal, I think it was a lovely finish from a player who, we've loved on the podcast so far this season. So Wolves, unlucky to lose 5-1, but I think it's just Man City, and they're phenomenal. And Man City, 3 more games to go. Fulham away, Tottenham away, and West Ham United at home. And I think we all expect Arsenal to probably win the last 2 games. The Man United one will be tricky, but Everton on the last day, you expect them to win it. Man City, you expect them to be Fulham away. It's the Tottenham away one, which everyone has earmarked as the one. If Man City are going to drop points, it's going to be in that game. That is going to be a big game, because Tottenham need to get a win, because they need it for their own sake, because on the back of 4 straight losses, they need to get themselves some more points and back into a winning frame of mind. But also, they can't, if they win in that game, they effectively hand the title to Arsenal. So in the ideal situation for Spurs, probably Man United do them a favour and beat Arsenal, and then they can beat City as well, and nothing changes. But that is the one, I think, where we're all earmarking, that's the one where the title's going to be decided, because if Man City win that, they win the league. And I think we can we'll see from the celebrations, if Man City do win that game, how much it will mean, because I think we'll all know that they will go on and beat West Ham on the final day of the season. And now we move on to the relegation race, as Nottingham Forest got a crucial 3 points as they beat Sheffield United 3-1 at Bramall Lane. And relegated Sheffield United have now conceded 100 goals in the Premier League this season. That is level with Swindon Town in 93-94, but that was in the 42-game season. So with 6 games less, Sheffield United conceded the same amount as the worst ever defensive side in Premier League history. And they've still got 2 games to go, so they probably will concede more. There's a bit of, Sheffield United bingo. How many goals are they going to concede in the last 2 games? And, you'd really hope they don't get mauled in the last 2 games. You hope they'd give it a good go, and hopefully, the record isn't too bad, because I think it'll be a long, long time before anyone else breaks this defensive record. But in fairness to them, they did start off the game as, I think, the better side. They really got into it. They really gave Nottingham Forest a good game. And in fact, they had 2.27 XG compared to Nottingham Forest 1.49. They had more shots on goal. They had more shots on target. And I think they're actually the better side. I think it's just a case of they didn't take the chances when they had them. And Nottingham Forest were very, very clinical. They took the chances, and they absolutely needed to, because they needed to get these 3 points. But Sheffield United got the initial lead. They got the goal through the penalty, through Brereton Diaz. And I think it was a little bit lucky how they got it. I think Montiel, who was already down already down on the ground as Brereton Diaz was running past him. But I think when he's already when you go to ground, you have to make sure you get the ball. And he went to ground too easily, too quickly. And in fact, he was just there on the ground while Brendan Diaz had nowhere to go apart from through him. And I think it was a penalty. Lovely penalty. And Sheffield United, found themselves 1-0 up. But Callum Hudson-Odoi, a player who, was being linked with like 80 odd million moves to Bayern Munich when his time at Chelsea. And, ever since his injury, his really big injury, everyone's been like, he has the potential and he has the talent, but will he be able to deliver and get back to those levels one day? And I think in this game we saw a glimpse of what he can absolutely do. He got this first goal from lovely assist by Danilo. He cut inside and top corner and is an absolute worldie. And he also gets the third goal for Nottingham Forest as well. Again, a very similar way. He gets the ball from Morgan Gibbs wide. Lovely tackle by Willy Bolly in the build-up to win the ball back. But then he cut inside, past one player, past the second player, and slots it into the far corner as well. And I think that was a much-needed win for Nottingham Forest. And now they put themselves 3 points from safety against Luton Town. But not only that, Nottingham Forest, it came out earlier today, are not going to get any points back in their appeal from their initial point deduction. Obviously, Nottingham Forest have got a 4-point deduction for breaking PSR rules. They will not get any of those points back after their appeal. It has been confirmed. So getting those 3 points was absolutely massive, was absolutely crucial, because they needed to make sure they got 3 points against Sheffield United, a team who are already relegated and who are not going to be fighting for much. If you don't get 3 points against Sheffield United, then maybe probably arguably deserve to go down. So I think it was so crucial that they got the 3 points in this game, especially because Luton Town on the Friday night did get a point as they drew 1-1 with Everton. And I think Luton can be a little bit lucky, the fact that, maybe Everton weren't too ahead before Luton even got back into the game, because obviously for the first one, Mengi fouls Branthwaite from the corner, and it is a stonewall penalty. Absolutely given this penalty. Again, not sure how the on-field referee doesn't see it. It is absolutely Mengi essentially just gets Branthwaite round his waist and just picks him up, and it's the most blatant penalty I've ever seen. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin scores it to get his 7th goal of the season. But just prior to that, actually, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Dwight McNeil. Yeah, it was Dwight McNeil run through and goal. And Mengi fouls him, and the referee doesn't give it as a penalty. But when you look back at it on the replay, he does get his foot. He does clip him. It is a bit soft, but I think it is a penalty. And if it was given on the field, I don't think VAR overturns it. And to me, Luton probably got away with one on there, and they probably should have got another penalty as well, Everton. So they could have been 2-0 down at that point, 2 penalties. But I think the way they got back into the game was really well worked. Adebayo with his 10th goal of the season. I didn't realise he'd actually got that many goals so far this season. But the way Lukonga gets the ball to him, he muscles Ashley Young completely out of the way, chests it down, and it's a lovely finish past Jordan Pickford. And, if Adebayo was fit for more this season, would Luton be higher up in the league? Maybe. So it's really one where Luton, 3 points of Nottingham Forest, can they do something? They got West Ham United away and Fulham at home. 2 very winnable games, and especially with the way that West Ham United have been playing in recent weeks, conceding a hell of a lot of chances and goals. You'd expect Luton to probably give them a game, but the only thing is, can they keep the ball out of their own net? That's a big issue with them. And for Everton, it's a point for them, and they're already safe, so they'll take it. But 3 points for Nottingham Forest, which puts them 3 points ahead of Luton Town, who did get that point, but a side who have potentially and very annoyingly for themselves left it a little bit too late is Burnley, as they lost 4-1 at home to Newcastle United. And it's a bit disappointing for Burnley, because they absolutely needed to get something out of this game. Even a draw would have really helped their case, and they started off the game much better. The first 15 minutes, they were really on top of Newcastle, creating a few good decent chances, and probably should have scored, but they didn't. And Newcastle, when you come up against a quality side, they will take advantage. And it was a goal through Callum Wilson. It was worked really well. Wilson scores from the rebound from Isak's shot. And I think the whole play for that goal, the way it plays out from the back to Livermento to Wilson out to wide. And I think it was just really well worked. And I think at that point, when Newcastle go 1-0 up in the 19th minute, and you think, Burnley have played so well so far, and them to not find themselves in the lead is incredibly frustrating. But then not only that, they just go on a little bit of a capitulation where they go 2-0 down to Longstaff, 3-0 down through Bruno Guimaraes, and you're just thinking to yourself, when you start off well and then it doesn't go your way and you concede a goal, just hang in there for a little bit and make sure that the other team doesn't get 2 or 3, and then it becomes really hard. And I think that's the annoying thing for Burnley in this game, because they played well but they let Newcastle run away with it. And after half time, Newcastle also got a penalty as well. Isak missed it, lovely save by Artem Muric, but Isak does get his goal only a couple of minutes later. Lovely assist by Jacob Murphy as well. And Newcastle at that point 4-0 up, and you think to yourself, oh, Burnley, you've given the game away. From when you're playing really well in the first 15 minutes, you really should have been doing a little bit better. But then they do get a goal, a very late consolation goal in the 86th minute. Lovely headed by Dara O'Shea from the corner from Goodmanson. He leaps up like a salmon into the far corner. Nothing Dubravka in goal can do about it. Nothing Dan Burn, 6'6" of Dan Burn can do about it at the back post, because it is such a bullet of a header, so accurately placed into the top corner. And you think to yourself, Burnley, very, very disappointing, especially on a weekend where you relegation rivals in Nottingham Forest who got 3 points, in which Luton Town have picked up a point as well. To not pick up anything with 2 games to go is very disappointing, and you now have to question whether they left it too little too late, because they've been playing really well as of late, getting some draws, getting the occasional win, but it's just not come at the right time. They needed to do this a little bit earlier, 5-6 games earlier on in the season, and they could be out of the relegation zone at the moment. But if it wasn't for Muric, his 7 saves in the match and his penalty save as well, who knows how bad it could have been for Burnley in this game as well. They're now 5 points of safety with 2 games to go, and they've got Nottingham Forest away at home, on the last game of the season. But before that, they got Tottenham away. Do we really see Burnley winning against Tottenham away from home? I don't. Even though the Spurs are playing really badly at the moment, 4 consecutive losses, they will absolutely be wanting to bounce back, and they'll look at Burnley and think, okay, we can absolutely win that. And can they keep Spurs out? I'm not sure they can. They can maybe get a draw from the game. I think a draw is ideal, but that won't be enough against Nottingham Forest. And they'll be 4 points behind, so they have to win against Tottenham, and they have to win against Nottingham Forest, but I just don't think it's going to happen for them. I think they've left it a little bit too late. But for Newcastle, I think it was a fantastic win. I mean, they've now won 4 out of the last 5. Alexander Isak has now won 20 goals for the Premier League this season. 20 goals, 1 assist. And I think he's been phenomenal. His second full season in the Premier League. And, he's the 3rd highest goal scorer. So I think credit to him. I think a lot of teams are very envious of the fact that Newcastle have got Isak in their side. They probably could do with a striker like him in the team. And I think, Newcastle really need to keep a hold of him, because he's been absolutely fantastic for them. They're now in 6th place, 2 points ahead of Man United and Chelsea, who are behind them in 7th and 8th. And I just think to myself, if they can get themselves 6th, I think it would be a very, very good end to the season for Newcastle. But one side who haven't had a good end to the season have been Brighton. However, they did manage to get the win over a very good Aston Villa side. 1-0 it was at home. And it was a goal in the 87th minute, the rebound from the penalty from João Pedro. And the reason why I'm starting with the goal is because there were a couple of VAR decisions. I think Gross got a goal disallowed for offside. I think John McGinn put the ball in the back of the net, but he was offside as well. But Brighton in this game, they came into it on the back of 7 games without a win. And I thought to myself, okay, you expect Aston Villa to probably win the game, but Brighton were all over Villa, if we're being completely honest. I mean, I think Brighton had so many more shots on target, higher XG. They had an XG of 2.53, and they were just a better side, and they absolutely deserved it. I think Simon Adingra again was fantastic. He's someone who, if he's going to be fully fit for a season and playing, I think he's going to be fantastic. We'll wait to have to see how it goes when Matoma is back into the side, who gets more game time. But I think Adingra was fantastic. I think João Pedro with link-up play was fantastic. I think this Brighton side were a lot better team today for having more experienced players in that side. I think they both, like Veltman back into the side, Danny Welbeck came in, and you could really tell, because they were absolutely all over Villa in terms of their press, in terms of their passing and creating chances. They were just a much better side. Brighton, who, despite the fact that they're probably in bottom half of the table, are a very good side, and they haven't been showing it as of late, but they showed it exactly today against Aston Villa. And Aston Villa will be very, very, very disappointed, because this game kicked off before the Spurs-Liverpool game, so they didn't know that Liverpool were going to beat Spurs and the way they did. But Villa, 2 shots all game, 1 on target, an XG of 0.05, and the 2 shots they had, one was by Diaby at the edge of the box, and another one was by Matty Cash he was miles out when he took that shot, and they created absolutely nothing. And yes, Rodgers did get injured in the game, but they still had Watkins, Bailey, Diaby, McGinn. So that's some very good attacking players on the pitch as well. So it does seem like one where Villa's legs just kind of fell off in this game, and towards the end of the season, you can't really blame him. They probably got one eye on the second leg against Olympiacos, where they are chasing 4-2. So they're probably all focused on that. But I think it's probably a game too many for Villa because they played really badly in this game. But they're probably going to be guaranteed fourth place, in the Premier League, Champions League football next season, as long as they get another 2 points. But you don't probably expect Spurs to win all the remaining games, so they probably almost definitely will get top 4. And Brighton, it's really nice to get a win after a couple of results where you haven't been at your best and you have been getting the wins, and now you can really look forward to next season as well, and hopefully finish the season on a good note. And the last game was Brentford 0, Fulham 0. Not much in general to talk about this game. An XG for Brentford of 0.63 and for Fulham of 1.28. But Fulham's most of that XG came from Raul Jimenez, as in the second half had replaced Rodrigo Muniz. The ball came to Adama Traore and he put the ball across the box. He gets a little bit of deflection and he absolutely skies it. He should have started that home. He could have even taken a touch with the amount of time and space he had. But he absolutely skied it, and I thought to myself, just a striker who's so out of form at the moment. With Mini's coming in and doing fantastically well, Jimenez is probably the second choice to him. But two players in this game who really did catch my eye were, one for Fulham, Alex Iwobi, and for Brentford were Keane Potter. And I think they're two players who are quite similar in some ways in the fact that they're both wide players who, their general play is really, really good. But they're just struggling at the moment to get the ball into the final third and be able to take the chances in terms of goals and assists and in terms of output, because that's what you really want from your attacking players now. Even the wide attacking players, they're more like forwards nowadays, so they have to be getting more goals. I think for Alex Iwobi, it's probably the story of his whole career, in the fact that if he gets himself into the right position, does everything right up until the final third, and if he could get more goals and assists, he probably would still be at Everton, or he probably still would be with Arsenal. And with Keane Potter, very different stage of his career, so very young, only recently joined Brentford from the Championship. So I think it's one where if he can get goals and assists to his name, he'll be a frightening player because he's got everything else about him. I think with Ivan Toney probably leaving in the summer, I think there'll be some more space and more game time for him as well. So not much to talk about for Brentford and for Fulham. Felt like very much like an end of season game where both sides were going at it, but neither side really had the quantity of conviction in terms of their striking to be able to score a goal and take the game by the scruff of the neck. But there we have it. That's all 10 games done for this Premier League weekend. And join us next week as we have so many more games to go. And we've only got next week and I think the week after where we can come in the podcast. Most sides will have 2 games to go. Some shall have 3 as well. But we'll be covering all of them for you right here on the Football Fellowship podcast. If you like this podcast, well, please give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. Give us a share, tell your friends. And we're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So give us 5 stars, tell all your friends about it, make sure they watch us as well, because we're going to be here till the end of the season and beyond. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next one.